Hello, Scott Rosano with Gigbuilder.com. This is episode number 210, and we're going to go with timelines today. Well, timelines allow you or your event client, or both of you, to generate order of events and things of that nature. They can be private or public, and we set that up by going to Tools, and we go to System Configuration, and from the System Configuration menu, we're going to scroll down until we find Timelines. It's under Event Planning. We click that, and you come up to your timeline, and you may have some, you may not, depending upon how you set up your Gigbuilder. But anyway, we're going to go through and generate a brand new one. It's pretty easy. We click on New, and let's go through each of the fields. Descriptive name, this is what you and the client will see. Maybe call this just event. Let's just say wedding reception timeline. And description, timeline for all wedding packages, or whatever you want to call it. The next is the style. There are three different ones. We'll click on this. We've got pre-populated, we've got suggested, and we have fixed. Pre-populated means the timeline will show up with an order of events in an order that you have originally selected or suggested. The client can go ahead and move those things around and make changes to it, but it's basically giving you a template. So it's like, here's our suggested way of the way we normally do things, and let them modify it. Suggested simply provides you with an empty timeline with a whole bunch of suggested activities on one side in which your client can drag and drop. Fixed, which is your last one, is exactly what that is. You have a fixed timeline. Maybe a specific event, maybe a charity. They do things at a certain time in a certain order, and they do not change. So being able to change this allows, when the timeline is built, how the timeline is going to create. Again, with a pre-populated, you're going to get a list they can change. Suggested is going to give you an empty timeline with a whole bunch of ideas on the side they can drag and drop. And fixed is that same list that you would do in pre-populated, but they cannot change it. So that's how that works. Pre-populated is the most favorite, and that's the default, and that's what we're going to use. Maximum rows means they can have a maximum of this many events. 30 should be more than enough. The visibility. Your client can view and modify it, or you can hide it. Maybe it's a timeline that you're doing for your entertainers or whatever else it is that they need to follow. So you can do both. And we're going to let this client may view or modify, which again is the default. And then the time field is display. Now you can turn the time field on and off. And again, this depends upon how you'd like to set yours up, and again, how Gigbuilder is so customizable. So if you want to display the time field, it will do it, and it will start at the start of the event. So if your event said it started at 6:30, then the very first activity will be at 6:30. You can also hide it, and then it's just an order of events. You do it when you get to it. So again, it's how you want to set your timeline up. Now we're going to set this one up to display. Pre-populated, 30 rows, client may view and modify, and display is the default. So now we go down to activity. And the first one might be reception starts. DJ play background music. And the time offset is going to be 0. And I'm going to explain this. This is the number of minutes before or after the start. So I could make this like a -10, and it would show 10 minutes before it started when the timeline comes up. A 0 means just that. If the reception starts at 6:30, then the time on that will show exactly at 6:30. You do not need to use these. It just helps. So the next thing might be cocktail hour. Free drinks. And that starts approximately 30 minutes into the reception. So at this point here, again, if you had a reception starting at 6 o'clock, the time would show at 6 o'clock for reception starts, 6:30 for the cocktail hour. And then maybe next one, bride and groom arrive. If I could spell right. And we'll do that at the grand entrance. And that is actually 90 minutes after. There's going to be a full cocktail hour. So that would be 6, 6:30, 8 o'clock. Or 7:30. So again, it's your timing that goes onto each of these. We have these, and you can keep working these all the way down for as many as you want, and you can provide up to 30. The next one down you can add is additional suggestions which they can add. Dollar dance, father, daughter, etc. And you can have a whole bunch of them. What will happen is on the timeline, these will be sitting on the side that they can drag and drop to what's listed up here on the top. Now, if you did this as suggested, then all of these items here and here will then all appear in one section. And you're going to see that in the next couple videos when we start putting these through and actually going through the client building them. So here we put in our timeline items. We put in a time offset. We've given some default notes. Your client can change all this. They can move it around. They can do whatever. It's just a suggested list. We can also modify the timeline by putting a header and a footer on here that you saw done exactly with worksheets. And it's just a word processor. Whatever you type in here, whatever tokens you put in here will end up being on the timeline. We're going to leave those both blank for now. We're going to click Save. Your timeline is now saved into the Gigbuilder system. Go ahead, create one or two. Try a different type of timeline types. And in the next few videos, you're going to get a chance to start playing with that.